Hello and welcome to Bike World. This week I'm checking out the brand new Ducati SuperSport, but first, here's what's coming up on the rest of the show.
John's just down the road from me, also in Seville, on the launch of the new Triumph Street Scrambler.
It's all well and good when manufacturers decrease weight, increase power in an effort to make bikes appeal to guys like me and you more and more. But the one secret and key ingredient that's really hard to add to a bike when you're bringing out a new one is how they make riders look and feel. This bike makes me look cool and it makes me feel pretty awesome, to be fair. It's the all-new 2017 Triumph Street Scrambler. So in the previous episode of the show, we rode the Triumph Street Cup. It has this slightly edgy, urban, aggressive cafe racer feel. The Street Scrambler has obvious off-road intentions, but like I said at the start, more importantly for me, it just seems to suit who I am and what I'm looking for in a bike that has this much weight, in a bike that makes this much power. We've just had an amazing day, off-road, on-road, riding through rivers, scratching pegs. It really is a bit of a do-it-all kind of bike. And if you are that guy that lives in the middle of a city and you like to think that you're a little bit Steve McQueen, or you're not fussed about going absolutely balls to the wall everywhere, you might not know it now, but a quick test ride on one of these would show just how good this bike really is. So the visual differences between this Street Twin and Street Cup, when you consider that they share the same platform, are fairly obvious. But just in case they aren't, we'll walk through the bike and talk about them. The first thing is this bike is running a specific tyre to it. It's the Metzeler Tourance. It's got enough capability, like the rest of the bike, for gentle, mild green laning. So sticking with that Scrambler theme, what we've got is a 19-inch front wheel, spoked, this little sump guard tucked down the front. Mechanically, and kind of in terms of the chassis, it is pretty much identical to the other bike in the street range. What we've got on this bike though, and what's slightly different, is the frame mounting points for various bits and pieces underneath the seat, the alley rack that you can have on the back, all these little different pieces that you won't see until you have a proper look at the two bikes lined up next to each other. They require different mounting points and different lugs on the chassis. So when they're saying that it's got a new frame, what they mean is the chassis shape itself is the same as the Street Cup. It's got these big wide bars. They're perfect for pushing and pulling the thing around town, doing U-turns in the middle of the road, wobbling around off-road as well. Moving back from that, and the big visual difference for me is this beautiful side-swept exhaust. The work that's gone into being able to engineer thousands and thousands of those exhausts, you know, they're mass produced. Triumph have clearly put a lot of effort into it, and the reward for me and you is a stock pipe that just sounds absolutely banging. So in standard form, you get two options. You get a sweet little alley rack that you can bolt on and bolt off in a couple of minutes. You can replace it with that little pillion perch. These pillion pegs, unlike the Street Cup, are demountable, so you can unbolt them, chuck the pillion seat in the back of the garage and just go kind of full Steve McQueen if you like. So in suspension terms, unadjustable Kayaba forks at the front and slightly longer shocks than Street Cup at the rear, but they offer the same 120mm of travel. The whole thing when you sat on it obviously feels a little bit taller than the Street Cup, but it's actually marginally shorter than the outgoing Scrambler that Triumph have been making for the last 10 years, I think. So like I say, the mechanical similarities between this and Street Cup and Street Twin are obvious, but where this bike differs slightly is the ABS is switchable for when you're wobbling around off-road, and the traction control can be switched off as well. Handy when you're going off-road, as I found out today, and more than just a gimmick. Another difference is the clock setup. On the Street Cup, it has Thruxton R-Clock, kind of twin dials, chrome bezels. They look and suit that bike perfectly, but with this one, what you get is a single clock, has an analog sweep speedo around the outside, and a big enough to use and worth having digital display that shows a couple of trip meters, what gear you're in, RPM if you want it to. There's a usable amount of information that the single clock has that just appeals to me. It's another little element of this bike that I found I like a little bit more than the Street Cup, if I'm honest. So you might have heard me grumbling on the Street Cup and possibly on the bobber launch as well about how the bike could probably do with a little bit more brake. Bizarrely, this one I think is pretty much on the money. It didn't really feel like it needed any more. It's got a single 310mm disc with a slide-in 2-piston caliper at the front. ABS, like I said earlier, you can switch it off. And that bit that I was talking about at the start about how this bike makes me feel, there's just something about this combination of bits and pieces that just makes me feel like I'm enjoying the ride more so than on the Street Cup. Bizarrely, I've had a look at the numbers. This bike weighs about the same as the outgoing Scrambler. I've ridden that bike quite a bit and it just felt like it weighed a ton. I think the big difference comes down to the way this bike makes its power and the fact that it makes substantially more power and torque than the old Scrambler. That thing before felt like a bit of a bus. You know, if you try to go off-road like we are now, you know, I've ridden to the side of this weird Spanish hillside. If the old one fell on you, that's you done for unless somebody's there to help you get up. This bike just feels, when you're riding it, a little bit more dynamic. It feels like you can push and pull the thing around. And I kind of get the feeling that if I did drop this, it would be relatively easy to pick up. It's ridiculous when you think that on paper they weigh the same. There's just something about this bike that feels different and it feels really, really good. So what is it about this bike that I like so much? Well, when you consider that it does share so many parts with the other bikes in the street range, I'm not entirely sure. It's that special ingredient that some bikes just have. I don't know whether it's because the bars are nice and upright and you get a great view of the road. I don't know if it's because of the way it produces the power and torque that it has through that really easy to use 5-speed gearbox. There's just something going on in this bike that's making me want to own one. That's no bad thing, unless you're me and you've got no money, which is me. We did a good 3 or 4 miles on this kind of shaly track loop. Some proper stuff to get stuck into. Had a whale of a time. I am to off-roading what a double-decker bus is to off-roading. I've got absolutely no off-road ability at all. But I found that I stood up on the rubber pegs, got stuck in, quite happy to stick the thing on the stop and let the back step out a bit and do a few skids here and there. Not a single moment, no screaming from my mother, nothing. It just got stuck in and I was really surprised with how it made me feel. It made me feel confident, which is one good thing, but it also made me smile. This is a genuine smile thanks to this bike. So you might think that it is just a little bit of a marketing gimmick, make the thing a bit taller, stick some funky knobbly tyres on it, you know, stick a sump guard on it and call it a Scrambler and hope that people just never really ride it off-road. When you consider that this bike does in fact have or share as many component parts as the Street Cup and the Street Twin, it's surprising how just increasing the front wheel size and adding those couple of bits and pieces gives this bike a completely different feel, especially when you get off-road. It's a capable off-road bike. If somebody that had any skill at all, more than me, I've no doubt at all that they'd actually be able to ride up this hill without falling off, which is probably what I'm going to do when we finish filming this. But again, the confidence that it inspired in somebody with the amount of off-road talent that I've got, which is about this much on a good day, it's, you know, you've got to commend Triumph for being able to come up with something that's as good off-road as this is, but it's as capable on-road as this is. And when I say capable on-road, I mean wheelies are there if you want them, I mean dragging pegs is there if you want it. It makes just the right amount of power to be able to gas along in third gear and get stuck into corners that we've been on today that are probably, I can't remember the last time I stumbled across roads in Europe that I haven't been on before and wanted to come back to as much. This is definitely one of the go-to destinations for a Bike World road test later on in the year. So price-wise, you're looking at 8,900 quid on the road for the jet black. There's also a funky Steve McQueen style matte green. That's 125 quid more than the black one. And then this, the most expensive one, I think it's called Carrossi Red. It's got this beautiful silver detail with a hand-finished black pinstripe around the silver. That's a £300 premium over the basic black model. So as is the way with all of the Triumph stuff at the minute, there is stacks of accessories to choose from. I think there's over 150 specific accessories for this bike alone. You can have a center stand, handy for a bike like this. You can also have an auxiliary power cable that runs up and you can mount on the bar so you can plug your sat nav and your kettle and stuff into it. They've thought of everything in a bid to save you from wanting anything that isn't Triumph. It makes complete sense in terms of not invalidating your warranty and that ease of fitment. So it's not like you're going to order something off eBay, it's going to arrive from China and none of the holes are going to line up. This is all box ticking stuff that you can have delivered to your nearest dealer and they'll stick it on for you straight away. So I got really excited at the prospect of riding the new Speed Triple. I'm all about modern stuff. I love the idea of riding bikes that have more power than I need and all that kind of thing. And I was kind of, you know, when we got the launch invite, I was like, oh man, another retro bike, another chance to wear a denim jacket and a stupid helmet. It is what it is at the minute. As much as we might want to ride super focused, performance-based bikes, the market is dictating that this is the kind of bike that people want. That's why Triumph have had the sales success that they've had. That's why they're producing as many modern classic bikes as they are. If we didn't want them, if you guys weren't buying them, I wouldn't be stood here talking about this bike now. But I am, and you are. And this is another one that we have to say, a test ride will only do so much. Talk to your dealer, see if you can grab it for an entire afternoon. Take it somewhere you've never been before, find a little bit of green lane, have a wobble around. You're going to see how much fun this bike is. You're going to see how much of a smile it'll paint on your face. You know, this smile is completely genuine. You can't buy that unless you've got 8,900 quid, plus 300 quid for the paint, plus the little bag, plus the sweet little headlight guard that they've got, plus the pipe, plus everything else.
I always get asked the question of, why do you do it? I just ride, I just do my thing, what I like and what I enjoy, and just, it's like the world just stops. And that feeling of just nothingness. I don't think I'd trade it for anything, ever.
Now, I'm checking out the all-new Ducati SuperSport.
So I want to fill you in on a little bit of a secret. Luke actually got a sneak preview of this bike way back in the summer of last year at World Ducati Week. But obviously we weren't allowed to show you, but now we finally got our hands on it. So before I tell you how this bike felt and how it rides, let me talk to you about the facts. First and foremost, the engine, 937cc. It's a very similar engine to the Multistrada that I test rode back at the end of last year, but Ducati are saying it's a completely different bike. Different crankcases, different throttle bodies, same 113 brake horsepower though. The reason the engine is different is because the engine is part of the frame, which makes these bikes very stiff and very light. Again, similar to the Multistrada, this has various different rider modes. This one's got Sport mode, Touring mode and Urban. Sport and Touring mode maintain the same power, but there's just a slight difference in power delivery. The Urban mode is obviously a lot easier to ride around town, commuting, and when you're stuck in traffic, so it's a bit of a reduced power bit more responsive in that throttle. Like the majority of Ducatis nowadays, this comes with the Ducati safety pack, which is 3 levels of ABS and also 8 levels of traction control. So let's take a quick look at the chassis now, and trademark Ducati, they've gone for the steel trellis frame. With a hint of Italian styling, they've left some of that frame exposed. Moving on from the chassis and looking at those front forks, they're Marzucci 43mm upside down forks, which are fully adjustable. The rear shock is Sachs, and that's preload adjustable only. As you expect from Ducati nowadays, the brakes are full spec Brembos. We've got 320mm front discs and a 265mm disc on the rear. The tyres that come standard on this bike are Pirelli Diablo Rosso 3s, and as we all know, if we've ridden them, they are a great piece of rubber. So taking a look at the styling of this bike, and you can see hints of the Panigale in this, with that front headlight and obviously the single-sided swinging arm. What I really like about this bike is the way the side panels integrate into that fuel tank, and also the front fairing actually comes around and wraps itself around the instrument panel, which looks really, really impressive. This bike comes in 2 models. We've got the SuperSport and the SuperSport S. The S is the bike behind me, and as you can see, comes with a few little different extras. First and foremost, you've got the 48mm Öhlins fully adjustable titanium nitrate front forks. The rear shock is Öhlins, again, fully adjustable. There's a Ducati quick shifter and also a rear seat cowl. The Ducati quick shifter and the rear seat cowl can be bought as extras for the standard bike. Engine-wise, it's completely the same engine. Brake-wise, completely the same brakes. An impressive spec sheet is all well and good, but how does it ride? So we've come out to Seville in Spain and the Monteblanco circuit. Now the plan was to have half a day on the track and then half of the day on the road, but the weather well and truly screwed us over once again.
So that's the first of the group rides going out on the road. The weather is still grim here. It looks like it's clearing up a little bit, but they're still not allowing us out on track because there's a bit of standing water. So hopefully in the next half an hour we're going to get a chance to ride this bike as well.
So we took the decision to spend most of the day at the track. I mean, if someone's going to offer you the track for a day, who's going to turn that down? So the first thing I noticed out on track was the engine and how different it is to the Multistrada. It's much more responsive, much quicker in acceleration, and the traction control worked amazing in those wet conditions. What I would say about this engine is a couple of times I was coming out of the corners in the wrong gear, but because of the torque, because of the power in that engine, it really didn't matter. It soon picked up and I was away again. Because we were on the track and we were in a controlled environment, Ducati provided us with wet tyres, which meant we could really push this bike to its limits, even in wet conditions. The handling of the bike was superb. Down the straight, it was as stable as anything. In the turns, it held a line exactly where I wanted it to go, and the change of direction through the chicanes was perfect. It really handled exactly how I'd expect it to with those Öhlins on. So because of the weather, the rider mode was set to touring for the first couple of sessions while we learned the track. Once the track dried up just a little bit, we switched that to sports mode. Now the only real difference between those is the difference in power delivery. Sports mode is a much more aggressive power delivery, whereas touring is a little bit smoother, same power all the way through, still 113 brake horsepower. So it might not be a true representation of just how good these brakes are because of the wet weather tyres, but they were phenomenal. They stopped on a sixpence. There was no running on and off the track, and I hit every apex that I aimed for. I hit most apexes that I aimed for. Brilliant brakes, and I'd love to get them on the road with those road tyres on in dry conditions just to see if they're as good. Because this isn't an out-and-out sports bike, there's a huge array of different accessories you can get for this, including some 44-litre semi-rigid panniers. So although it is a sports bike, it can be used for touring as well, but it isn't a sports tourer.
During a break in track time, I managed to take the standard bike out for a quick spin, and surprise, surprise, it rained. But that didn't deter me from seeing what it was like on the road. Through the little towns and in the traffic, it was easy to handle, very smooth at low speeds, and once out on the bigger open roads, it felt even more at home than it did on the track. Like I said before, once this bike lands in the UK, I'll be giving it a full-on road review. So we're halfway through the day here at the track. I've done a couple of sessions already, and now what's going off behind me is the tracking shot. So basically we're going to follow behind a car, and the car's going to get some nice shots of us from the track point of view. Obviously we can't go as fast as we were on the track earlier, but this bike is unbelievably easy to ride, and I guess that's what Ducati are trying to do with this bike, trying to make it versatile and accessible for everybody.
Great to get out on the track and ride this bike. This bike is perfect for so many different people for so many different reasons. If you're just getting into track days, I compare it to an SV650, one of those bikes that you get because you think it's going to be a little less powerful than the big 1000cc bikes, but it's still got plenty of go in it. It handles amazingly, and even the most amateur of riders are going to get something out of this, whether it be a track day, whether it be on the road. Because the riding position is a lot more relaxed than what you'd class a normal sports bike to be, it means it's a lot more comfortable, it's a lot easier to handle. You can really manhandle the bike around because the handlebars are on those risers. So how much is this bundle of fun going to cost you? Well, for the standard version, which only comes in Ducati Red, it's $11,495. The S version also comes in the standard Ducati Red, but also this colour behind me here, which is the Star White Silk. And the price for the S version is $12,795. New riders who want to get to the track, touring riders and older riders who want a little more comfort but still want that adrenaline rush. Could this be the ultimate all-rounder?
Seems to be a bit of a running theme, and the rain has stopped play once again here, so unfortunately that's the end of the day, that's the end of the test of this Ducati. But the time we got out there on the track, the dry time was sensational. Great bike, really looking forward to getting it back to the UK and giving it a full road test once they land mid-March. That's it for another episode of Bike World, but here's a quick look at what's coming up on next week's show.
Okay, so finally, long last, been waiting a few years, Suzuki has brought out a new GSXR 1000.
It wouldn't be a Bike World review without a bit of rain, but check it out over there by the coast. It's sunshine and it's probably about 20 degrees down there. I don't know why they brought us up here.